Hello again. This is Satan's Trilogy, and I am reading Book 3, Chapter 6, and this will be reading 105. I am the author and the narrator. So sit back, relax, and let the story unfold. Bo raised his left arm as he spoke into the microphone. "Bring Satan to me. I am ready." Bo gave the microphone to Michael Wade and walked to his corner to watch Satan's entrance. Michael Wade stood silently in the center of the ring as the lights dimmed slightly and the temperature dropped. Quickly it seemed that the stadium was cold. Michael Wade spoke into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's title match for the heavyweight championship of the world is about to start." The crowd seemed restless and anxious to see the match. Michael Wade continued his speech. "You have met the challenger, Bo Jackson." Michael Wade gestured to Bo's corner where he stood waiting for Satan. The crowd yelled in approval. Michael continued. "Now let me introduce the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world," pausing a brief moment, then yelling, "Satan!" Michael Wade had mustered up all of the enthusiasm possible and gestured his arm to the far end of the stadium where Satan had always entered with his vintage coach, drawn by 6 magnificent black Frisian stallions. Satan's coach was drawn by 7,200 pounds of horse flesh, the most beautiful kind. Any person with sight could appreciate the 6 black beasts pulling the coach. Few people could appreciate the skill it took to control them. To control 6 Frisian stallions in this wild environment was thought by many to be impossible, and yet Satan's coach arrives without any mishap. The sight was truly wonderful as the horses breathed heavily and their hot breath bellowed from their nostrils into the stadium's suddenly cooled air. The driver was obviously thin with a bit of height, making him highly visible. He wore a black leather cape and a black leather hat. He could have been a stagecoach driver from the history books. If you could catch a glimpse of his face, it was weathered. He was someone that worked hard and most certainly outdoors. The stadium was going wild as they usually did. The sight of 6 thoroughbred horses pulling an ornate coach from the past was thrilling. Satan's entrance into the stadium had, from the first, set a new standard of flair. The driver moved the coach alongside the wrestling ring and pulled the horses to a stop. They didn't seem to enjoy standing still. All 6 stallions seemed eager to continue along. 2 small men dressed in black with ninja masks ran up to the door on the coach and pulled them open. Some fog slowly fell from the inside of the coach, like a fog coming down from a mountaintop. Suddenly, Satan leaned out, grabbing one of the coach doors. He waved at the fans. Satan was dressed as never before. His entire wardrobe was covered with flames. Even his red boots were covered with flames, and the mask on his head had dozens, if not hundreds, of small flames shooting upwards. The crowd renewed its enthusiasm, and Satan was for the moment the crowd's favorite. Or perhaps it was only his showmanship that the crowd was responding to. Nevertheless, Satan appeared to enter the arena as a welcomed champion. Black Gothic band had been playing deep bass sounds that seemed to vibrate through everyone's gut, and the PA system played the voices of hundreds, if not thousands, of wailing souls, people screaming for mercy from the underworld. The voices became louder, as did the instruments from the BGB. Suddenly, all sound stopped. There was a moment of silence, and then the fans cheered. Satan made his way up the steps onto the perimeter of the ring. He was flanked by two women on each side. They kept their distance from him, but were obviously part of his entourage. Satan stood at the center of the entry site, not in the ring yet, holding his arms up and then flexing them down. His biceps bulged to enormous size. They were unbelievable, and the crowd went wild. Michael Wade approached the side of the ring. Satan turned and took the golden microphone from Michael, holding up his left arm as a symbol of strength. He spoke into the microphone, holding it with his right hand. Satan spoke. Some people think that this man will be a challenge for me tonight. Satan stopped, smiled, and continued. I don't mind that, because after defeating 60 challengers with little effort, I welcome a real match. Satan smiled. But, Satan yelled and then finished his thoughts. At the end of the night, I will leave here with the W.O.W. title belt, and you can all witness that tonight. The ladies held down the top rope as Satan stepped over them and into the wrestling ring. The four female escorts followed and stayed close behind. Satan handed the golden microphone back to Michael Wade as he approached the center of the ring, crossed his arms, and waited for Michael to finish his introductions. Michael Wade, standing calm and in control as usual, finished his introductions. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard from the challenger, Bo Jackson. The crowd went wild for a few moments, then Michael Wade continued. And you have heard from the heavyweight champion of the world, Satan. Michael had introduced Satan with a huge amount of enthusiasm. In the corner to my right, we have Bo Jackson. Michael waited for the applause to subside, and in the corner to the left is the W.O.W. heavyweight champion of the world, Satan. Crowd again went wild with a few people booing. Michael waited for the crowd to calm down and continued. It is time to introduce the referee of the night's match, Mr. John, and as many of you call him, Big John. Michael Wade handed the microphone to Big John and stepped back, giving him time to speak with the two wrestlers. The fans had again gone wild and applauded for Big John. Big John was a big man and was obviously not physically fit. Big John was perhaps 5'8" and without doubt overweight. However, he did know how to control the wrestlers, and he could move quickly on the mat, dropping to his knees almost instantly to begin counting a wrestler out. His experience and skill was second to none. Big John motioned for both wrestlers to come to the center of the ring. He gave each wrestler their instructions about how the rules went, and that he wouldn't tolerate anything outside of the rules. The W.O.W. had given Big John total authority within the ring, and no one ever challenged that authority. The audience had only mildly listened to Big John's speech. Most of the audience had heard it many times before. Big John stepped back, handed the golden microphone to Michael Wade without looking. He sent each wrestler to his corner of the mat. Michael Wade had quickly left the mat. Big John indicated to the W.O.W. authorities on the side of the ring to start the challenge, and one of them rang the bell. The match had now begun, and Big John indicated to both wrestlers to begin. Bo Jackson moved quickly to the center of the ring, as did Satan. Bo had some momentum going for him, and he charged his right shoulder into Satan's chest, knocking him backwards a few inches, and quickly grabbing Satan's right arm and pulling it back into an arm lock. Satan stood still, gazing around at the crowd, and then pulled his right arm back to his front as Bo struggled against him. As Satan's arm neared his front, Satan unleashed it backwards, pushing Bo into the ropes with a tremendous force. Bo grabbed the ropes to prevent being flung back at Satan. The crowd yelled in delight. Satan had prepared to slam into Bo, but Bo had prevented that from happening. Satan lunged towards Bo, but missed as Bo quickly moved sideways. Turning towards Bo, he found himself the recipient of his opponent's feet crashing into his chest. As Bo fell to the mat, Satan was flung off the ropes. Tripping on Bo's legs, Satan found himself on the mat, with Bo having trapped his legs in a tortuous leg lock that allowed Bo to place tremendous leverage on Satan. Big John kept looking at Satan for signs of strain, but Satan only laid there, giving the situation a consideration. He then rolled over once, carrying Bo with him, and ended up in the ropes. Big John forced Bo to release Satan. Wrestlers were not allowed to be tangled in the ropes during any pin. Bo Jackson released Satan from the leg lock as instructed by Big John, but he immediately slammed his left arm into Satan's upper back as Bo dropped to the mat, hoping to find Satan collapsing back into the mat. Satan felt the force of Bo's arm, but only slightly wavered. He regained his posture and went after Bo Jackson, lifting him off the mat like a twig on the lawn, and he then threw Bo onto the mat, then dropping immediately onto him, knocking the air out of Bo Jackson. Satan then grabbed Bo by his shoes and moved him to the center of the ring, quickly climbing to the top of the ropes. In the nearest corner, Satan launched himself towards Bo Jackson. Bo moved from his position just as Satan was about to crash on top of him. Getting to his feet, Bo Jackson fell back onto Satan with a crushing elbow strike against the upper back of Satan. Now Bo grabbed Satan's legs and entangled them under his body weight, exerting tremendous pressure on Satan's legs. This time Satan yelled and slapped the mat with his right arm. This time Satan showed pain. Never before had this been witnessed by the W.O.W. fans. The crowd knew that tonight this match would be unlike any other. Bo Jackson, seeing Satan's weakness, was quickly empowered by his success. He had finally shown not only to the crowd but to other wrestlers that Satan did indeed feel pain. As Bo felt this new confidence, one of Satan's escorts climbed the ropes and launched herself into Bo's shoulders, knocking him forward and causing him to lose his grip on Satan. Danielle Elizabeth quickly went into action and removed Satan's escort from the mat and tossed her through the ropes in a punishing manner. Tracy Ann had her eyes on the other three escorts of Satan that seemed satisfied at standing back and watching the action. Dave was watching the entire mat action and Satan's escorts, while Esther was keeping focus on the entire stadium. Bo would not suffer any attacks from outside of the ring while Esther was at his side. Satan had quickly recovered from Bo's attack and was at his corner discussing his options with his manager. Turning towards Bo with a look of frustration and disgust, Satan charged into Bo. Moving at the very last minute, Bo had evaded the attack and again managed to pull Satan off balance and to the mat, where Bo continued the attack on Satan's legs. Satan rolled over on the mat and managed to catch a lower rope with his left arm. Big John immediately told Bo to release Satan. No one is allowed to wrestle while tangled in the ropes. Bo cautiously moved away. Satan slowly climbed to his feet, holding onto the ropes as he stood on his weakened legs. Bo wanted to grab Satan at the earliest opportunity, but Big John held him back until he was certain that Satan was able to continue the match. The crowd was screaming. It was hard to tell if they favored Satan or Bo. The sound of the crowd was deafening, and it seemed closer to true hysteria than the W.O.W. had ever experienced before. Big John backed away and signaled with his right arm that the match could continue. Bo quickly moved in and started to slam Satan with his forearm. Bo pounded Satan with his right arm, slamming his forearm on Satan's back. It seemed to have less effect than Bo had hoped for. Satan let loose with a soft growl and stood up, surprising Bo and knocking him backwards with a forearm smash of his own. But it was against Bo's chest, and Bo had been caught off guard. Staggering backwards, Bo ended up in Satan's corner, surrounded by the 4 escorts of Satan. All 4 girls started instantly attacking him, giving Satan a clear opportunity to attack Bo while he had to deal with the escorts. Bo had a rope placed around his neck, and 2 of the escorts were pulling on it. The other 2 escorts were trying to tie ropes around Bo's arms to tie him to the corner post. Danielle, Tracy, and Day were on the spot in less than 1 second, quickly dispersing the escorts off the mat and onto the floor. Esther was towering above everyone remaining on the perimeter of the mat and securing the overall scene. Satan's escorts backed off several feet and huddled together, wondering how to deal with their opponents. They had known what to expect from Danielle and Tracy, but they had tossed the 2 new girls off the mat with great ease, and that concerned them. Bo had just received a knee in the gut. As his body leaned against the ropes, Satan held on to the ropes and continued to slam his knee into Bo's gut. The crowd was always screaming. They hadn't let up. Gothic band was playing some intense drum rolls, ending in a bass guitar slam each time Satan's knee hit Bo. The count was 4 when Bo finally grabbed Satan's knee and flipped him backwards onto the mat. Satan didn't move, and Bo was quickly on him. Once again, Bo attacked the legs and used a leg trap that seemed innovative to everyone, sitting on Satan's crossed legs while facing away from him. Bo quickly played to the crowd and held his arms up, coaxing everyone to cheer him on, and it seemed like the vast majority did. Black Gothic Band had switched to a high whining lead guitar sound with some crashing cymbals playing. Satan's manager didn't like what he was seeing and protested to Big John that the leg lock was illegal. Of course, Big John had heard it all before, and he ignored Satan's manager and focused on Satan's actions. Satan's manager seemed concerned. He looked into Satan's eyes and yelled out a command in Latin. "Finish this man now." Satan heard his manager yell the command and then stopped his theatrics. Quickly, Satan pushed his legs out to full length, sending Bo Jackson against the ropes. Standing where he had once been laying, Satan waited for his opponent to be slung back towards him, where he stood ready to slice his forearm across Bo's chest. Bo Jackson felt like he had been hit by a locomotive. The force took the air out of his chest and left him gagging for air. Bo dropped to the mat, nearly paralyzed. Satan was now playing with Bo. Grabbing his right arm, Satan pulled Bo off the floor and flung him to the opposite side of the mat. Bo managed to hold onto the ropes, preventing his being thrown back into Satan. He then collapsed onto the mat. Somehow, Bo found the strength to slide under the ropes and onto the floor, where he tried to gather back his breath. This is where Bo might have been vulnerable to attack by Satan's escorts had it not been for his own entourage. The twins and Day were quickly surrounding Bo, while Esther kept a close distance, watching the entire stadium. Keeping his distance, Satan refused to go near Esther, and she was on the outer mat, positioned above Bo. Big John started to count the time. Bo would be allowed 3 minutes to return to the mat before Big John would declare the match over and Satan the winner. 3 minutes might seem like a lot, but when you can't catch your breath, it is not very long. Bo stood bent over, trying to find air for his lungs and the strength to return to the mat. 2 of Satan's escorts came near Bo's position. Danielle and Tracy quickly positioned themselves in front of them. Day was standing closely behind the twins. Suddenly, all 4 of Satan's escorts ran forward and were carrying ropes, which they had used previously. Danielle and Tracy stopped 2 attackers, but 2 more passed them. They stood in their way, and she grabbed both simultaneously at their lower arms and pulling them backwards into submissive positions. 2 loud snaps were heard, and their arms were dislocated at the elbows. It was a defensive move that Esther had shown her friends, yet Day had applied it with both hands, and it was effective on 2 opponents. The 2 escorts went down to their knees and cried out in pain. I'm going to stop there. That was reading 105. So until next time, take care and be safe. Thank you for listening.